Hello, you've tuned this week's episode of Next Steps Forward, and I'm your host, Chris Meek. As always, it's an honor to have you with us. Next Steps Forward is committed to helping others achieve more than ever while experiencing greater personal empowerment and well-being. Our guest today is retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General James Lukeman. As the current CEO of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation, his mission is to preserve and promulgate the history, traditions, and culture of the Marine Corps and educate all Americans about its virtues. Jim Lukeman attended the University of Notre Dame on a Marine Corps ROTC scholarship, was commissioned as a second lieutenant upon graduation, and spent 40 years of his life on active military duty. Among his many assignments over the years, General Lukeman was deployed to the Persian Gulf, Germany, and Okinawa. He was detailed to the Office of the Secretary of Defense, served as the Chief of Staff for Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, served as the Deputy Director for Strategy and Plans for the U.S. Africa Command, was the Commanding General of the 2nd Marine Division, and served as the Commanding General of the Training and Education Command. General James Lukeman, it is such an honor to have you with us today. Welcome to Next Steps Forward.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
Now, it's an absolute honor, and some people might joke, you couldn't hold a job, but we know it's very different in the military, so it's truly an honor to have you with us, sir, and looking forward to our conversation. And I'm eager to talk about your mission to educate the public about the Marine Corps and how the National Museum of the Marine Corps helps to accomplish that mission. But I really want to learn more about you first. What inspired you to join the Marine Corps?
Well, I grew up in a Marine Corps family, Chris. So my father was a Marine, and he was a Marine the whole time I was growing up. So I was born at Parris Island. My father was stationed at Parris Island when I was born, so I was actually born at Parris Island. So I grew up around the Marine Corps. He was still on active duty when I went to the University of Notre Dame on a Marine Corps ROTC scholarship. And so I think when I was looking for college and trying to figure out how we were going to pay for that, and an ROTC scholarship became an option, I remember thinking, hey, I know what the Marine Corps is like. I think 4 years in the Marine Corps will do me some good. I could use some discipline. So it was, I think I always thought it was a possibility that I would do that, but I never thought I'd stick around after that.
And do you ever think about what you would have done if you hadn't joined the Marine Corps or stuck around?
Well, I did. I was a chemical engineering major in Notre Dame. I figured I'd do 4 years in the Marine Corps and then get out and work for Phillips Petroleum, make $1 million or something. But I didn't do that. I liked what I was doing in the Marine Corps. And after about 3.5 years, when it came time to make a decision whether I was going to stick around or not, I looked around and said, I really kind of like what I'm doing. So I'm not sure why I would get out. And then I never looked back.
Well, knowing that we have an all-volunteer force and knowing that the numbers for recruitment have been dropping, actually been ticking up the last couple of years, now's your chance to be, a recruitment officer here. What was it after that 3.5 years that made you continue that service for another 36.5 years?
I don't think any of us plan to stay that long, Chris. It's kind of the next step, I think, is what you think about. And so at that point, I had a great experience in my first few years in the Marine Corps. Had recently changed duty stations because we do that every couple of years in the Marine Corps, and came back to Quantico, Virginia at that point. My wife got a job up in D.C. I'd gotten married on that first tour, and so we were just everything was good. I said, well, I think I'll just keep doing this. But I don't think most people don't think it's going to be a career when they come in. They think they're going to spend 3 or 4 years and then figure it out from there. And there were several times over my 40 years where I thought that was going to be the end, that I might leave, not on my own, but the Marine Corps was going to be done with me. And then I'd have to find something else to do.
And obviously serving the military is a very different career than most people have. How did that decision shape your life beyond your career?
Yeah, it does make a different life beyond being a Marine. Part of that, I think, is the opportunity to move around from place to place. And so unlike some folks who grow up and stay in the same community their whole life and have friends from elementary school and that kind of thing, as we move around, my friends mostly were Marines because that's who I was staying connected with as we moved from duty station to duty station. So I think it shapes the Marine Corps life kind of tends to build on itself. I think about most of what I've done in my life has been centered around the Marine Corps, not a lot of interest outside of that. So I think it does affect other things besides just your work, by the fact that you're moving from place to place, living on Marine Corps bases, deploying away from the family, and other Marines are sharing those experiences with you.
Do you have any children?
I do. 2 daughters. Neither one joined the Marine Corps. Neither one married a Marine. So I'm working on the grandkids now. So that's terrific.
So there's still hope for the family business?
That's right. That's right.
So you said in the past you had your ups and downs during your 4+ decades in the Marine Corps. You even said that you were, quote, not a very good lieutenant, but you got better. For someone who's a 2-star general, that's quite a candid admission. What's the backstory there, sir?
Yeah. I'm not sure that's that rare of a thing that happens, but so I came out of college, and like most young Marine lieutenants, I was smart and fit and eager and lots of energy and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really know how to lead. And as a young infantry lieutenant, you're thrust into a leadership position right away, which is great. That's what's great about the Marine Corps. And hopefully people help you learn along the way. That first organization that I became part of, my company commander, captain, he was an alcoholic Vietnam vet. My platoon sergeant, similarly an alcoholic Vietnam vet. And I didn't get as much mentoring and coaching as perhaps I needed at the time. So floundered a little bit, but then went on to a different unit with different leadership. And learned how the right way to do it is, and finished out that first assignment as a second lieutenant a little better than as I started. But then I went on to another duty station. This is one of the great things about the Marine Corps. When you go from place to place, you have opportunities to meet other people and grow. So the next duty assignment I went to, I worked with some terrific staff non-commissioned officers, terrific staff NCOs. So as a young lieutenant and then as a young captain, I saw how great staff NCOs could be and what they were like. And then as I went back to the infantry as a captain, I checked into a unit that had some just terrific officers in it. And I ended up as a young captain, joined 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, and said, well, I want to be a company commander, which we all do. I said, but you're going to be the S3 Alpha. That's the assistant operations officer. And I said, well, I want to be a company commander. They said, well, you're going to be the assistant operations officer. I was like, okay, yes, sir. But my boss, the operations officer, was Major Tom Waldhauser, who retired as a 4-star general later in the Marine Corps. And Lima Company was a captain named Joe Dunford, who retired as a 4-star general, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Weapons Company was Mark Gerganis, who retired as a 2-star general. Fred Padilla was the ADG. He retired as a 3-star general later on. So I was surrounded by these super officers in 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. And it was just a great environment to learn what it's like to learn how to be a good Marine. So I think from a slow start, I had some great opportunities after that to learn about what it means to be a leader.
So my listeners know I'm a huge Yankees fan, and hopefully tonight's not the end of our season. But it sounds like you were on the 1927 Yankees there with that roster, that lineup.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that is the who's who of modern era Marine Corps greats.
Yeah, and you'll see that in different units at different times, Chris. It's interesting. That was one where we had these officers that went on to do great things in the Marine Corps. There are other Marine units that I know of as well that have clusters of general officers, and I think there's something about that synergy between them where you just know what a good environment feels like and what it is to be good. When I joined that unit, I thought that's what all battalions were like. I didn't know it was anything special. I figured that's what everybody's like. Later on, I realized, oh no, that was pretty special.
Well, and to your point, what is about those clusters? Do good leaders attract good leaders, or do they feed off of each other and just try and, I don't say leapfrog, but learn from each other and grow together?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think, when you join a team, and my commanders, I'm a Washington Redskins / Commanders fan, so are a good example of that. When the team is clicking and people are happy and performers come in, they rise to a level. And I think that happens in military units. When the team is not clicking, when it's a bad leadership environment, when there's not a good feeling about things, people come in and they don't rise. So I think there's a whole aspect of team building and leadership that probably goes back to the battalion commander we had in that outfit that allowed young captains like myself and others to be good. And to join a group that just was happy and proficient and professional. So Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that you see in the military a lot, like you see in sports teams.
You talked about the 1927 Murderers Row Yankees there with all the stars there and the generals. But when you start the conversation, you mentioned some NCOs. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of active duty military, and maybe for our non-military friendly folks who don't know about much, can you talk about the importance of the NCO and what that actually stands for and what it means?
Yeah, so non-commissioned officer, and staff non-commissioned officer is when an enlisted Marine has spent some time a couple of years in, and has gotten promoted, and he's risen to a position of leadership. And NCO stands for non-commissioned officer. It starts at rank of corporal and then sergeant, which is probably the best rank in the Marine Corps. And then staff NCOs, staff sergeant, gunnery sergeant above, are that next level of leadership. So officers and staff NCOs and enlisted Marines have different roles in an organization. And we understand that. And it's that partnership between the officer and the staff non-commissioned officer and non-commissioned officers that makes that unit work. Those folks, the NCOs and staff NCOs, are the ones leading the young Marines. And while you as a young officer know those Marines and are leading them as well and setting an example for them, they are the ones that make it happen. The NCOs and staff NCOs make it happen. So the leaders provide guidance and work with those staff NCOs and NCOs in a good unit. And they understand the roles we have. So they are the backbone of the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, we put that role of recruiting young Americans to become Marines, recruit training, and training in schools. We put that burden on the NCOs and staff NCOs. That is who our recruiters and recruit trainers are. And they are the ones that make sure the Marine Corps continues to be what it has always been.
You said the word that I was hoping you would say, and that was the backbone, because that's anyone who I know I've talked to, that is the absolute word of who and what they are. And so I appreciate that backstory on that. A few moments ago, we talked about about you not being a very good lieutenant early on in your career. You touched on you learning from some of the greats in the Marine Corps. Would you share some of your favorite ups throughout your career?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. There've been a lot, and you know it when you see it and when you feel it. So there are times when you are leading an organization. When I was a company commander, Lima Company, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, we had I felt a very good and proficient unit, and there are just memories I have of being with those Marines doing exercises. We didn't go to combat together. This was 1986, 87, 88. And we didn't go to combat during that time. We did a lot of training and a lot of sailing around the world and deploying places. But they were just a very proficient unit, and it felt good. The lieutenants were good. The staff NCOs were good. The Marines were good. We were close, and you had that tight feeling of a winning team at that point. So that was one of those. I've had other opportunities when I was the commanding general of 2nd Marine Division. That was a privilege. To be able to lead. This is now 2012 to 2014. So we were sending units to Afghanistan at the time. And so we didn't go as an entire division to Afghanistan, but we prepared and trained battalions, about 1,000 Marines or so, to go to Afghanistan for a 6 or 7 month deployment, and then brought them home. And so that responsibility as 2nd Marine Division to prepare and deploy units into combat, and then also to take care of their families and to welcome them back home was a great opportunity down at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I was 2nd Marine Division CG. So those have been two particularly highs. Being a battalion commander was awesome as well. So, there's lots of different places. I think most Marines like the time they're with Marines in command. Those become the favorite times. Sure, we have important jobs on the staff in places, but those just aren't quite as satisfying as being in command of Marines. So those were a couple of highs.
One of your career ups certainly must have been when you're named CEO of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. How did that come about? And would you have ever guessed during your service years that you end up in that role?
I would not have guessed that, Chris, that it was not something I thought about as a Marine. And it's really pretty interesting. When I retired in 2020, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. I wanted to work. I wanted to stay in Northern Virginia because I had some family things here that I needed to stay close to. And so I thought I might teach. I thought I might mentor a little bit because if you spend a lot of time in the Marine Corps as a general, you've seen a lot, and you want to be able to pass that on to younger Marines. And so I started looking down that path, and it wasn't panning out right away. It was like, well, yeah, maybe next year, we'll look for somebody there. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm going to have to get on LinkedIn and do a resume and network and actually get a job. And then about that time, a friend of mine who was on the board at the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation, it was General Tom Waldhauser, who I worked for in 1986, who is now retired general and on the board at the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And he called me up and said, hey, we're looking for somebody to take over the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. We can put your name in the hat for that if you're interested. And I said, yeah, I would love to do that. It's interesting, Chris, when my father retired, after his 35 years in the Marine Corps, he went on to take over the Marine Corps Association, which is another organization that supports the Marine Corps from the outside. And I remember thinking, I was a captain at the time, and I remember thinking, wow, how terrific is that? He gets to retire, but stay close to the Marine Corps and support them in a way that's outside the Marine Corps. And then it happened to me, and it was like deja vu all over again. It was perfect. So I was really lucky to be able to get into that role as the president and CEO of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And that has been terrific. It's the best retirement job in the Marine Corps. I'm very fortunate to have been able to participate and do this part for the Marine Corps.
So we're going to talk about the foundation in detail, but I want to talk first about the Marines. Even people who have served in other branches will acknowledge that the Marines are different. What is it about the Marine Corps culture that sets it apart from the others?
Yeah, it is that culture word that you said, Chris, is what it is. And right from the time a young man or woman steps on the yellow footprints at Paris Island or San Diego to try to earn the title to be a Marine, what they learn from day one is, one, Marine Corps has never failed at anything in the history of the Marine Corps, and you're not about to be the first. And then you are taught those that have gone before, the heroes, the battles, the things you need to know about the past. Any culture has its stories, has its traditions, has its language, has its the clothes that they wear, the songs they sing, all those things the Marine Corps holds very dear. And we start from boot camp and officer candidate school with teaching those things to those who want to be Marines. So by the time you graduate from boot camp or officer candidate school, that eagle, globe, and anchor is tattooed on your heart, and you know what it means to be a Marine. And then we carry that throughout your time in the Marine Corps, so that all Marines understand that the reputation we have today has been passed down by those generations of Marines that have gone before us. And we know what those stories are and where they come from. So I think being a little more fanatical about our history, and not just the dates and places, but what those battles mean and what those accomplishments of Marines mean to Marines makes us feel a little different in the Marine Corps. And there's a pride. You build a pride with that, right? That I'm a part of this team. I made it through a very difficult process to become one of this very few to be a Marine. And whether the Marine serves 1 year and gets out for some other reason, or 40 years, you'll see them, years later, wearing a Marine Corps hat, got a Marine Corps bumper sticker on my car, got a Marine Corps flag flying outside my house because they're proud to be a Marine. So it is that culture word that you mentioned, Chris, is what the Marine Corps has and preserves very carefully.
It's interesting that you're talking about the bumper sticker and the flag. I don't think I've seen any Army moms or Air Force mom stickers, but the number of Marine mom stickers I've seen are through the roof. Yeah. So I think that culture actually expands into the immediate family.
It does. If you've ever been to a boot camp graduation at Paris Island or San Diego, it's a tremendous moving family experience. Their young son or daughter's been there for 13 weeks going through training, and the families all come down on graduation day, and they're sitting in the bleachers watching them march across the parade deck. And you can't tell who's who because they all look the same. So they're all trying to find their Marine out there who looks just like everybody else. And then once it's all done, they rush out onto the parade deck, and there's hugs and kisses and how proud, and oh my gosh, you've changed so much. Look how tall you are. You're skinny. How did that happen? It's a moving experience for the families as well.
That's amazing. So Marines are also known for a lot of great qualities, and including, but not just, honor, courage, discipline, patriotism, and of course, resilience. And Marines are nothing if not resilient. How does the Marine Corps teach resilience to recruits? And what can people who don't want to go through boot camp learn from the Marines?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a little bit half jokingly that Marines are taught that the Marine Corps has never failed at anything in the history of the Marine Corps, and you're not about to. There's a way that drill instructors communicate to these young recruits that you can do more than you thought you could, and you will do more than you thought you ever could. I remember having that feeling. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I've done a full day's work, and I'm like, holy cow, it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. So you believe that you can do more than you ever thought you could. And then the stories that are celebrated are of Marines overcoming incredible adversity, whether that's the battles in Iwo Jima or Belleau Wood or any of the other Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War, Hue City in Vietnam. These battles that Marines learn about overcoming incredible odds to win, and that's what Marines do. And again, this seed of pride that gets planted in every Marine, that even if he feels like he wants to quit, he knows he can't quit because he's a Marine and he can't let his buddies down on the right and left. So I think the belief that you will overcome is really strong. Now, their resilience, the Marine Corps understands the challenges that Marines go through in combat and how to help Marines through that after that. So we've gotten a lot smarter over the last couple decades of war about that. Post-traumatic stress is a real thing. It has been since the Civil War and probably before that. And so the Marine Corps doesn't ignore that. And we actually know how to, or we try to make sure that Marines still feel that sense of community and commitment and part of a team after they come back from combat that they did while they were in combat.
Another Marine quality certainly is leadership. And you must have served with some leaders over the years who were tremendous role models, as we mentioned earlier. Who are some of the most important role models, and what traits made them such great role models for you?
Probably I'd have to start with my dad first. He was a Marine, but he was more important, my father. So I'm a lot like him, look like him, talk like him, that kind of thing. So I think that was probably my first role model. But I wasn't always going to be a Marine. That wasn't always a thing in my family. There's a picture of me from 74, something like that. I was in high school. Got long black hair, almost shoulder length. I've got a mustache. I've got silver wire rimmed glasses, and I'm wearing a sky blue double knit leisure suit, with a silky shirt with palm trees and sailboats on it.
I'm sure you've burnt that picture by now.
I was looking good, but so I wasn't always going to be a Marine, but the Marine Corps changed me. Other role models that I've had, General Joe Dunford, who I met as a captain, I ended up taking Lima Company from him. We passed the flag from Lima Company. He later on became my regimental commander when I was a battalion commander. And then he was commandant when I was on the staff at Training and Education Command as a general. So I've worked with him several times over my career. He is just a terrific role model. I mean, there are few like him, and our country is better off for having had General Joe Dunford serve as long as he did. Super smart, always a step ahead, thinking what is happening next. I mean, he was very patient with those of us who were briefing him on things where he kind of knew where this was going to end up, but he'd let us get through it, and then to I don't know, make us feel good. No, but until we got to the right answer. So he's been one of my role models throughout my career as well.
We've talked about resiliency and leadership in terms of your Marines, but not all Marines stay 25, 30, 35, 40 years. What do you do, or have you had any experience in terms of helping Marines transition into the civilian life? And how do you help, and if so, how do you help them take those skills from resilience, leadership, et cetera, honor, courage, discipline, and take that Marine Corps military resume and help that transition into a private sector resume?
Yeah. So great point. Most Marines don't stay for a career. Most Marines leave after 4 years. I mean, we're a very young service, and Only a third or a quarter of our Marines stay in after the first 4 years. The rest go out and become great Americans. And one of the things we talk about is not just what the Marine Corps has done for our country for 250 years, but what Marines have done for our country for 250 years. Because they go off with these things they've learned in the Marine Corps about hard work and love of country and selfless service to others. And they apply those in their civilian lives and are oftentimes very successful because of what they've learned in the Marine Corps. And I've heard a lot of folks talk about, the leadership I got was an MBA in leadership in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and that's why I am successful now in business. But in terms of transitioning and help folks transition, there is some work to translate those skills into the job market. I mean, I think if you were successful in the Marine Corps, you can do whatever that job is that you're trying to do. I mean, it really is almost, there's a lot of universal ability there that what you learn in the Marine Corps. So I would encourage folks to understand what that means to have served honorably and get out with an honorable discharge. And that's that's an awful lot of qualifications to do great at almost any job.
Fair point. Can't say any better. So let's talk about personal well-being and empowerment for a moment. And then we'll go on to the other topics. Military service has always been extremely stressful. And you talked about PTSD before, and so much that does push people beyond their breaking points. Has the mental and emotional toll of warfare changed over the decades as technology has changed how war is waged? And second, how does the Marine Corps strive to protect individuals' well-being, especially those who have been in combat?
Yeah. I don't, that first question about has the impact of war changed as the characteristics of war have changed with technology and different types of combat now than there was in previous wars. I don't think it has changed. It is, it's always changing. I guess it's always changing, but there is always the potential that Marines coming back from combat will feel a loss when they come back. And what I mean by that is when you are together as a unit in combat, you absolutely are depending on each other for your life and their life. They're depending on you for their life. So you are it is about as intensely connected to your Marine buddies as you could ever be. And then you come back to the country, come back to the United States after the war, and maybe leave the Marine Corps. And now maybe nobody needs you that way anymore. And you don't need anybody else that way anymore, and there's a sense of loss, and maybe I'm lost a little bit because I don't know where I fit right now. I knew where I fit before, and now I don't know where I fit. So one of the ways the Marine Corps has tried to deal with this is to keep those units together when they come back from combat. In Vietnam, Marines came back and soldiers came back individually from Vietnam by themselves, left their unit in combat, came back by themselves, and then they were here. We've changed that now where we bring whole units back from combat. So for Iraq, Afghanistan, the whole unit comes back together. We've further developed that where we keep that unit together for 90 days after they come back. And you don't allow Marines to transfer out, to leave the Marine Corps, to go home. I mean, they get leave, but I mean, they don't leave their buddies. So you keep that unit together to let them transition from combat together for a while and experience that before they go off on a new duty station. And that's been very helpful to try to ease that feeling of being a little bit lost when you come back from combat. It has been combat in Iraq and Afghanistan has been very difficult because you're asking very young Marines to make very difficult decisions about life and death because your combat is mixed in with civilians and innocent people. And so you're trying to fight through a place where around one corner there's innocent folks trying to do their best, and on the other corner there's somebody trying to kill you. And so that can be difficult for young Marines to reconcile as well.
This question is on empowerment, and it almost seems unnecessary, but how has your military career empowered you, and how does it typically tend to empower others who serve?
I think that they, by being placed in with opportunities to exercise leadership, to make choices, it is empowering. In other words, you put you in experience in leadership roles, the Marine Corps is very good about that. It's like you're in charge of an organization or a mission or a task, and you're going to fail or you're going to succeed, one or the other. And most of the time, that's not life or death. It's just a simple task. But you get over and over and over again these tasks assigned to you with the responsibility, and hopefully get coached each time afterwards that was great, you did good, or no, you should do this differently next time. And so they talk about how sometimes leaders, as they move up the chain, seem so smart and so, boy, how do you know that? And I tell people, I've seen the movie. I know how this ends. I've been through this experience many times. And so I think the empowerment comes from multiple experiences in leadership that allow you to build on your resume, if you will, of how to deal with the challenges as they come up.
And one part of personal empowerment is how what we learn enables us to grow and go on to accomplish other things in life. Now, I know you'd like to talk about how many Marines have gone on to serve their communities, as you mentioned before, after their time in the Corps, but would you share some of your favorite stories on that topic?
Yeah, it is one of my favorite things to talk about, Chris, is the Marines who have gone on to serve their community. Because I think a lot of Americans don't know a Marine. They don't, maybe they don't have a Marine in their family, or they feel like they don't know a Marine, and they probably do. They just might not know that they were a Marine. Of course, that's a little tough because, like I said, we always wear our Marine Corps on our sleeve or on our heart, however, wherever it's tattooed. But so let me share a couple stories. There's a gentleman named Bill Greason. He lives down in Alabama. He was born on September 3rd, 1924. So he is 101 years old. And Bill Greason is black. Was a baseball player. But he enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1943 and went to fight on Iwo Jima. Before he could become a Marine, he was one of the very first black Marines to join the Marine Corps. So he was trained at Montford Point, North Carolina, separate from Paris Island and San Diego, because that's what the Marine Corps did with black Marines back then. They trained them separately. So he had to not only overcome what it takes to become a Marine, but the prejudice at the time as well to become a Marine. Fought on Iwo Jima, came back, got out of the Marine Corps after World War II. But like I say, he's a baseball player. So he plays in the Negro Leagues. He's a pitcher and pitches for several years. In 1954, he's called up by the St. Louis Cardinals to be one of the very first black. He was the second black member of the St. Louis Cardinals ever, and pitches in the major leagues in 1954. Eventually leaves baseball. Actually, not long after that, leaves baseball. Becomes a preacher down in Alabama in a church there, and preaches for 50 years to his community. So continues to serve his community today. He stopped preaching actively in 2024. So a year ago, he stopped, but he's still, kicking it down there in Alabama. So here's a person who has that Marine Corps trait, but has other skills as well, and is giving back to his community. Another one that people probably know is Fred Smith of FedEx, who passed away this year earlier. And Fred was a decorated Captain Marine from Vietnam, Silver Star recipient, but then came back and founded FedEx after leaving the Marine Corps. And not just the success in business for FedEx, but FedEx has been such a great contributor to the city of Memphis. They stayed in Memphis, which is not the biggest hub in the world, or was not the biggest hub in the world at the time. And that's where FedEx headquartered was, employed the people of Memphis in FedEx, and gave so much back to his community because he benefited from his success in business, which he attributes to the leadership he learned in the Marine Corps, and then wanted to give back to his community in Memphis. So I think that Memphis really loves Fred Smith and the FedEx family that's there. There's several others. There's a guy named Jake Wood who was a Marine, and he was the founder and former president of Team Rubicon, which some of you may have heard about. It's an organization that brings veterans in to respond to humanitarian crisis or natural disasters around the world. Jake Harriman, another Marine who founded and is the president of an organization called More Perfect Union, which is focused on trying to heal the divides of our country today and bring our country together. So these are Marines who have gone on to either work as a nonprofit or in their communities to try to make it a better world. So there's lots of examples like that. And one of the things we're doing this year as a foundation is highlighting these folks across the country as part of our 250th celebration, because it is the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps this year. We've gone to each state, and we're working our way across the country alphabetically, and identifying a half a dozen or so people just like these that I've mentioned in each state, and doing a little press release there within their communities, and hopefully getting some local recognition for them and what they've done for their communities.
Has the foundation thought about writing or publishing a book on all these great Marines?
As we finish that, I think there's something there. We haven't, that wasn't part of the plan to begin with, but as we get through the end of the year, and now I've got 200 or 300 of these, some of them are already, there are books already about quote unquote famous Marines. And so some of those names, Gene Hackman was a famous actor and a Marine. Adam Driver is currently an actor and Marine. Other businessmen, politicians, George, I forgot who I was going to say, but anyway, yeah, there's George Schultz is who I was going to talk about.
That's right.
Was a Marine. So there's lots of famous Marines out there, but we shouldn't let this list that we've created go to waste, for sure.
At a minimum, maybe make a page on the website and just sort of go through the history. And
you can see them today on our marine250.com website. Thank you for that intro.
It's a great plug.
So all things 250th for the Marine Corps. We created a website, it's marine250.com, where you can go there and see all of our Marines across America, is what we call this part of it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on the Marine 250th there on the marine250.com website.
All right. Well, that's the perfect segue into my next note here to get into. Marine Corps is a big, huge birthday next month. Tell us about that birthday and what that celebration is going to look like.
Yeah, so we are very proud. It is the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps this year. It's also the 250th anniversary of the Army and the Navy, which you saw some of that Army parade earlier, and I think the Navy did something last week. Their birthday is actually coming up in a week. But Marines are different. Okay, so the Marine Corps was born in a bar in Philadelphia on November 10th, 1775. So we had a Continental Army, we had a Continental Navy, and the Navy said, I need some Marines. I need some men to go aboard ships and shoot the Brits and go seize things ashore. And George Washington said, well, you're not getting any of my soldiers to do that. So the Continental Congress said, create a Marine Corps. Captain Samuel Nicholas, I'm commissioning you a captain, Sam, in the Marine Corps. Go raise 2 battalions of Marines. Go, recruit 2 battalions of Marines. Well, Samuel Nicholas happened to be a bar owner. So he went to Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, which was a bar on the pier there in Philadelphia, and said, everybody come in, seize your fortune, prepare for adventure, and join the Marine Corps. And so recruited Marines in the bar. And so we were born November 10th, 1775. About 100 years ago, our commandant at the time, General John Lejeune, said, we're going to stop every year on November 10th and remember what it means to be a Marine. We're going to recall those that have gone before us, that have created this reputation that we who are Marines today enjoy. So we're going to talk about battles won, heroes, and we're going to just pause and remember who we are. So we started that 100 years ago. And every year we have done that since then. So it has evolved over the years into a celebration that all Marines know and will participate in, whether you served one day or not one day, 1 year or 40 years. Wherever 2 Marines are gathered on or around the 10th of November, they will have a happy birthday. It usually involves a cake of some sort, and it usually involves sharing that cake with the oldest Marine present and the youngest Marine present, because there's a tradition of passing from one to the next, passing those traditions on. And it gets very elaborate in other places. We will have some very elaborate birthday celebrations here in the National Museum of the Marine Corps on the 10th of November, and the Commandant will have a ball up in Washington, D.C. His ball is actually on the 8th of November this year, but on or around the 10th, we'll celebrate that. So it is a huge anniversary for the Marine Corps, the 250th.
And as I shared with you when we met a few weeks ago to prep for this, a few buddies of mine who are Marines, I had a breakfast meeting with them on November 11th, and they were a little late and blurry-eyed. And so I recommend anybody don't make any business meetings with Marines on November 11th, because they might be taking the day off. So we'll just leave it at that.
Well, this year, the 250th, Chris, is huge. So again, our foundation, and I know we'll talk about this some more, our foundation's mission and what it does and what we're doing for the 250th, but that has been our mission for the whole year. We are going year-long nationwide with this celebration, not just celebrating it on the 10th of November this year, but celebrating it all year long.
Well, it's like you're reading my notes verbatim here. So we talked about the Marine Corps being around for 250 years. How long has the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation been in existence, and how did it come about?
Yeah, so the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation started in 1979. We were actually called the Marine Corps Historical Foundation then, and its mission was to preserve the Marine Corps history and share it with the world. Our mission changed a little bit in the late 90s, because it was in the late 90s where the Marine Corps decided we need to build a real museum for the Marine Corps. All services have museums and always have. They collect the artifacts and keep them. The Marine Corps was kind of spread out amongst a couple places. The Washington Navy Yard had some. Down here at Quantico, there was a leaky warehouse with a couple of red and yellow painted rocks out front that was called a museum. And so the Marine Corps decided, hey, we need a real museum. And so they asked the Marine Corps Historical Foundation to take the lead on that. And so we changed our name to Marine Corps Heritage Foundation and took on the mission of raising the money and designing and building a true national museum of the Marine Corps, and did that. So the National Museum of the Marine Corps opened in 2006 on November 10th, shock and surprise, 2006. A tremendous accomplishment by the folks here at the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation to do that. And it's really a Smithsonian level, beautiful museum. The people that drive up and down 95 have driven by it, just south of Washington, D.C., outside the Marine Corps base at Quantico. It's a tall glass and steel structure with a spire that sticks out of it. And a lot of people drive by and go, wonder what that is. Well, that's a church or what that is. But it's only a church for Marines. It's our cathedral. But that is the National Museum of the Marine Corps. So that's the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And our mission, as you mentioned, is to preserve and promulgate the history, tradition, culture of the Marine Corps and educate all Americans in its virtues. So our mission is not only to preserve those stories and those artifacts and those things, but share it with all Americans.
And to that point, you mentioned your mission is to share the Marine Corps' history and tradition. What are the milestones of that history that Americans need to know and to truly appreciate?
Yeah. So what we say here about the museum is it's 250 years of American history through the eyes of Marines, because the Marine Corps has been around for 250 years. So everything that has been important to this country, that battles and things that have happened to this country, the Marine Corps has been a part of. And that's what you'll see here in the National Museum as you go through. So yes, we have galleries dedicated to World War I and World War II and Korea and Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq and Afghanistan. But you'll also see innovations that the Marine Corps is responsible for that have in our society. We have a timeline in our museum that goes from 1775 until today, where we talk about things happening in the country and in the world, and then also things happening in the Marine Corps at the same time. So you can see that history as you go through. I think the important thing for folks visiting our museum is that it is educational, but and you can learn about dates and places and that kind of thing. But what's more important is what those things stand for and what they mean for the Marine Corps. I'll give you an example. We have the flag that was raised on Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima on February 23rd, 1945. So that's the flag that is in the famous Joe Rosenthal photograph of, and you'll see the Marine Corps War Memorial in Arlington is the same image of 6 Marines raising a flag on Iwo Jima. That flag is here. But what that flag stands for, that photograph that was taken, it's 1945 now. The country's been at World War II for almost 4 years. It's not sure we're going to win this war yet. And when Joe Rosenthal's photograph of Marines raising that flag on Mount Suribachi is in every newspaper in the country, what it means is victory. It means we're going to win this war. And that flag becomes the symbol of that victory. It comes back to the United States during the war and goes on a war bond tour where they take the flag around the country and say, we need to buy a bond, you can touch the flag, because it means so much to Americans. So that flag is not just about what happened in the battle. It means more than that, not just to Marines, but to our country. And it did at the time, which is why the Marines are so tied to that image of the flag raising on Iwo Jima.
And that flag is in your museum?
Oh, yeah. That flag's here every day. And the other thing about the museum is it actually puts you in the experience. So it's not just looking at artifacts. You will walk through a CH-46 helicopter and walk out the back end onto Hill 881 South in Vietnam if you come to our museum. And Vietnam veterans do that, and some are very taken aback by it because it takes them right back. You will go into a room that's cold and dark where Fox Company 27 and Captain Barber held that pass for 5 days and 5 nights against the Chinese, but you'll be in the room with those Marines. And the figures that are in there are actually real Marines that have posed for these figures, young Marines today that are very realistic. You'll get off a landing craft in Iwo Jima after watching real footage of the landing on Iwo Jima on the side of the landing craft, as if you're going ashore with Marines on Iwo Jima. So we try to put Marines in the experience that the Marines would have felt. I mean, visitors in the experience that Marines would have felt at the time. It's a fantastic museum for that.
And maybe share with our listeners and viewers who are Marines that are reluctant to go to the museum because they might not want to go back to that particular situation.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes. The realism does affect different people, different ways. So we have created what we call a respite room in the museum, which is a place to cool down if you get emotionally charged by being in part of one of the exhibits in the museum. So and there's warning signs too as well. In Fallujah, before you go into the alley in Fallujah again and walk down where room clearing is done in the museum here, there's a warning that talks about that. And if you want to avoid that, you can bypass it and not go through that part of the museum.
It's no secret that our country is unbelievably divided right now, unfortunately. And without getting into the politics of it all, is there a unifying theme in the Heritage Foundation's message and mission at a time when we really desperately need it?
Yeah, I think so, Chris. And it's what we've tried to achieve this year in the part of our mission that is educate all Americans in its virtues. We're using the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps to go across the country and take a message to the American people. And we did that by going where they are. In other words, we'd love everybody to come to the museum. We've had over 7.5 million visitors in the museum since she opened. But that leaves 325 million Americans out there that haven't been here yet. So how do we reach them? So we've been taking the message to them in places where they are, whether that's a high school state championship football game, a minor league baseball game, a NASCAR event, or just in their hometown somewhere with community events that we have sponsored this year all year long. And the message we're trying to take to the American people is the message that you asked me about. It's not, again, it's not just learning about what the Marine Corps has done for this country. It's talking to Americans about what the Marine Corps stands for. So people look at Marines and they go, okay, that's honor and courage and commitment. That's service to something bigger than yourself. That's love of country and patriotism. That's pride. We really admire that in Marines. And all those things that I just mentioned are American traits. It's pride in America. And all of us felt that at some point and feel that at some point. So I think today, to be able to take that message and say, look, this is not just for the Marine Corps. This message of it's good to be part of it. It's good to serve others. It's good to be part of something better than yourself. It's not about me. It's about me being a part of a team and a part of a group that is going to win and be successful. That message is one that we're trying to share with the American people. And it's not just pride in the Marine Corps this year, but it's pride in America as well.
I'm going to take that soundbite and play it over and over and over again across all social media platforms I can find, because 300 million Americans need to hear that. So thank you for sharing that, General. We were talking earlier in our conversation about leadership and the qualities that the Marine Corps instills in its people. The foundation has a teaching residence program that reflects those traits. Would you share how the teaching residence program works and what some of our audience should do if they're interested in participating?
Yeah. So a museum is an educational tool. During COVID, the museum was closed, and an empty museum is really not much good for anybody. So we as a foundation wanted to do as much as we can to enhance the educational opportunities that our museum provides. So we've worked with two of the counties here in Virginia that border the museum, Prince William County and Stafford County, and we arranged with them for us to pay the counties the salary and benefits for teachers and have a teacher from each county come work full-time in the museum. So they stay on the rolls as a teacher in Prince William County or Stafford County. So they keep their tenure and they keep their ability to go into classrooms, but they work in the National Museum of the Marine Corps every day. And so they do both student groups here in the museum, but they also take portable trunks of things to the schools around the counties and take it to them and teach there. They also prepare learning plans and lessons that can be done virtually across the country, so distance learning as well. So the education program here at the museum is pretty robust. And again, it's not just teaching about Marine Corps, it's teaching American history and social studies and leadership. We run leadership camps all summer long here at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. And so the teacher in residence program is one of the ways we do that and enhance the education here. The way folks can support that and support other education programs here at the Marine Corps is through our foundation. The National Museum of the Marine Corps is a public-private venture. So all the artifacts belong to the Marine Corps, not the foundation. And the Marine Corps cares for those artifacts with a staff here in the National Museum of the Marine Corps. We, the foundation, support in other ways. So if somebody wants to help support educational programs, they would contribute to the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And everything we take in goes back into the museum and improvements and education programs here at the museum and what we call the Marine Corps Heritage Center, which is the campus that we're a part of here.
As a foundation, you're a 501c3?
We are. It's a 501c3 nonprofit and accept donations in a number of ways, whether it's a donor advised fund or a qualified charitable distribution or just a simple donation, a planned gift. All the ways that you can give to nonprofits, you can give to the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. And our website is marineheritage.org. That's the website where you can contribute to the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation to support the National Museum of the Marine Corps and the programs we do here.
As an event a few years ago for our local hospital, and the former news anchor Brian Williams was the MC, and he just kept commenting how if you have a donor advised fund, we'll take your check, because if you got one of those, there's a lot in there. So,
and folks that are old enough to have a required minimum distribution out of your IRA, if you give it straight to a nonprofit, there's a whole tax benefit for you and for others. That's the easy way to contribute to organizations like ours.
General, we have just a few minutes left. What are some parting words of wisdom about leadership, resiliency, patriotism that you would leave again with a very divided country that we have right now?
Yeah, I think that it's important for all Americans to recognize that it's a great country. And I think Marines feel that way. And I think that when people look at a Marine in dress blues and they see that image, they feel something proud about that. I know Marines feel proud to have served. And I think that's something that the country needs to recapture, is that feeling that we all had togetherness. You know, after September 11th, you hate to have a tragedy like that, but those that are old enough to remember what it felt like as the country came together for common cause. And so I think that by highlighting some of those things that have always been the best of America, whether that's the Marine Corps or whether it's Pride or whether it's the 1927 Yankees, whatever it is, to remember those type of feelings of how we can come together. And if we come together, there's nothing that can stop us. We'll be tremendously successful as a country.
United States Marine Corps retired Major General Jim Lukeman, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate your time, sir. It's an honor.
Chris, thanks for having me. It's been great to spend time with you.
And thank you for your service and sacrifice, sir.
Thank you.
I'm Chris Meek. We're out of time. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, stay safe and keep taking your next